just put a small reminder at the beginning here that we see Nash as a fintech company which uses blockchain as the infrastructure to build the services. So we want to provide financial tools for the decentralized future of finance. And blockchain for us is an infrastructure piece. It's not the reason we exist. We don't like to call us a blockchain company. Maybe in 15 years, we have another Satoshi who has a better blockchain, sharing our referral program, and brought at least, so this is at least 32,000 new users to Nash. So these are NEO registered emails that are not at the same pool at the initial offering. So we have touched now about 200,000 people with Nash, which is an excellent number to start a company. And these people here will be invited to join the events going forward, and they will be invited to join our products as soon as they are live. It's a really great number, and I have only to say thank you for our community. And a second very big thank you, and something that we are really happy with, is that we received so much feedback. When we launched our initial beta, we did so in a private way, so we interviewed a lot of people, and we got a lot of feedback. And on this feedback, we had many different colliding messages. So we tested a lot of those hypotheses, and we got to a point, and I don't want to spoil the remainder of this presentation, but we got to a point where we are happy with our MVP user experience. We have always said that we are going to launch our initial platform, which is the funds management and exchange, when we are happy with it. And right now, we are happy with the user experience designs that we have. All that we are working now is to refine, to implement them, and to have them operating at the best that they can. So going forward, I will follow this very usual pattern that we do in these presentations, which is go about a few of our internal company groups and talk what they have been doing on Q1. So the first one is marketing communication. So we built this beautiful user experience. We have been building this very nice technology behind it that appears so simple, but is so complex. And there's a lot of Nash engineers here that can attest how complex things are. And how do we present that is very important. So our marketing communication team has been working a lot on how we're going to present this product to the world. Nobody replies for a week or days, and it's just disheartening, right? And we do not want to provide that. We want to provide the best support, as we want to be the best in everything, and that is a huge milestone that we are going forward there. Another thing is the design of the referral program that you all saw. So if you think about on the cost of user acquisition, we are going under $1, so we are actually under $0.33 for every new user we have been acquired on our referral program. That's an amazing development for that. So it's a very nice development that is happening. And I think we have still not touched the full potential here. So as soon as we have our exchange live, we hope that our community help us to bring even more people under this referral program. Another thing that we have started to draft on Q1, and it's important, is how is going to look like our approach for marketing when we launch. So we have always been about a real company. So we are not building a single product or a single protocol because we raised some amount of capital and going away. We want to build a company that's going to outlast myself, right? So it should be living hundreds of years. So how we launch is very important to be really focused on the services that we provide, not only what we build and going there. So we have been working on a strategy. I don't want to get too much in details here, but it's a strategy based a lot on social impact and social media of how we're going to touch the next users of Nash. And post-launch roadmap, from the marketing perspective, is, okay, now we have a product, we have users, you can trade, you can hold your funds in Nash. How do we promote to our current users the next products that Nash is going to have. How do we take users from funds management to exchange, and from exchange to what comes after? Also very important. Another piece of our company, which is at the heart, is the backend and matching engine. So backend and matching engine is at the heart of our MVP, at the exchange. And we had very good development here. I have only to say thank you for the engineers working on it. Thank you very much. And we are the result of a lot of complexity. We have different ways to do timing force. So you can have different ways on which your order is filled. This is also have never been seen before on exchange, which is non-custodial. We have a stop orders. So you have stop market, and the stop limit is a lot of features. There is still refinement. There's bugs to be fixed. There is improvements to be made everywhere. But we are feature complete, and that's very important for how we approach the market. So we will not be approaching with a product that does not deliver what the user expects, and that's very important. Another thing is that there was a lot of development on this first quarter on the Ethereum and NEO settlement. So the Ethereum settlement has started to be integrated just a few weeks ago. And the next step is the NEO settlement, which reuses a lot of the logic from the Ethereum settlement. And this is also another very important thing. We are talking here about cross-chain settlement of trades in non-custodial form. Also another first, and just because I have so much brains in our company, it's amazing. It amazes me the talent that we have inside the company and how we are achieving these milestones. So when we started to draft this piece by piece, a lot of these things were first, and a lot of people didn't believe we would deliver that. But just today, you can, if you are in your community, you can enter an equilibrium and place a stop loss order that will trigger in 24 hours in a cross-chain Ethereum NEO market. Just let it sink in what that means. We have conducted 5 security reviews by 3 different companies. So I had 2 reviews by Recurity, a German company very well known in the security space. We have 2 reviews by Curve53, also very known in the security space. A week ago, they had found a bug in Google search. So that's the kind of people who is auditing our code. And we have also a security review by NCC Group. And nobody actually found a critical flaw in our system. So there was, I think the biggest level that we received was medium, and that's very good for us. We are very happy and we are very confident on the security of the system. To such a degree that I can easily say that security is not a concern for our product right now. It's only about experience and performance and stability. And we started to also think about what comes after for the backend team after the MVP. So again, Nash is not an exchange. It's a company building this platform for decentralized finance. So something that I have been dedicated myself a lot is thinking about how do we move after the MVP is in place, how we get our see a much faster pace of iterations on the front end. So what before took a few days to iterate on, now we can see being iterated daily, which is very important for us to achieve the user experience that we're refining. And another thing that is very important, and it's again closing this stage for Nash, which is the MVP UX specification. So we have come to a place where the initial product, which is the funds management and the exchange, both the simplified exchange and the advanced exchange interfaces, they have now a specification, user experience design that is very close to what's going to be delivered. Just a caveat here, that's not what you see currently on Equilibrio demo. So there was not time enough to implement all the details of the finals interfaces. But what we're going to do is we're going to use Equilibrium to do multiple testings. So if you have been using the exchange today, you saw probably that we today did about 2 new deployments, and in both of those, there was changes on the UI. And if we keep this cadence, we're going to hit our goals very fast. So we are very happy to be approaching times where people in general, not only our community, will be able to use our products. I want to invite now Ethan to talk what comes beyond this initial phase. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fabio. Right, so as Fabio's just been giving a bunch of great updates about the exchange, but as he's mentioned several times, and as we know, Nash is much more than an exchange. We're working on a kind of broader infrastructure for decentralized finance. Oh, Fabio, I need the clicker. So I just want to kind of talk about a few of these things today, sort of give you a sense of where we are with some of them and what these directions look like going forwards. So the first thing I want to talk about is payments. And so what I mean by payments is sort of payments between individuals or payments between individuals and merchants. So this can be like, with a website, with a physical store, anything you can think of where you want to pay someone, this is what I'm talking about. So this is, a really, really huge market. It's, more than a $1 trillion market, I believe. And if you think about sort of what any decentralized financial infrastructure is going to look like, it's almost certainly going to include some kind of payments. So we've been talking to a number of people in the space, of very big people who can be merchant partners for us, and learning a lot about what their needs are for decentralized, basically for decentralized payment platforms. So this is something just to kind of think about and keep in mind. Like when we're talking about user experience, we're not just talking about like end user experience, right? Talking to individual people and figuring out how does UX work for them. We also mean talking to businesses, right? Talking to businesses, figuring out what their needs are, and designing around those needs. So our future payments infrastructure is going to be exactly what that is, and we'll be excited to share that later in the quarter for you guys. So the second thing I want to talk about is mobile. And so mobile is, as you might imagine, a kind of natural extension of some of our payments ideas. Again, if you think about sort of this core idea of user experience, very often when you're making payments, you're doing it in locations that involve like a mobile device, right? So just in London, for example, maybe you go to a store, you pay with Apple Pay, you use the subway, you do any of these things. These all involve mobile devices, and so it's very natural that we'd want an application that's best in class for making payments in this way. So of course, you'll also be able to trade with this application. It's currently in development, or designs were just finalized a few weeks ago, and development work there is ongoing. So the last, and another really big important piece here, talking to users, is security, right? So if you talk to people in this space, many people either don't use two-factor authentication, have problems with two-factor authentication. This is responsible for a lot of bad behavior, people losing funds on exchanges, many other bad things happening to people. And we can really simplify that quite a lot. So by taking advantage of a mobile application that implements some of these kind of equivalent two-factor authentication methods, or in some cases even better from a security standpoint, we can make it very easy to securely access the Nash exchange just by using this sort of partner app on your mobile device. Now, the final thing I'd like to talk about is funds. So many of you have probably seen the funds management interface that we've launched in the beta. So kind of the broad vision of this is a place that you can hold really any digital asset that you want to have in the future. And what I want to announce today is that we're going to be supporting many assets that you may not have expected. So in particular, very soon in the beta, you're going to be seeing Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin. So these will all be fully supported as part of the funds management interface. And beyond that, as some of you may know, but we'd like to announce this officially, we will be supporting Bitcoin trading very soon after launch. So the idea here is we have created a protocol that allows you to have self-custody of Bitcoin and also trade that Bitcoin in a performant way. And so, this is really a pretty unique thing, and we're very excited to be showing that. So with that, thank you. So if any of that sounds interesting to you or someone you know, I just also wanted to reiterate that we are hiring. So in particular, we're looking for at least one new back-end engineer. So our infrastructure is Elixir, so if you have any experience with that, that's great. Obviously, you don't need to know that, but it always helps. We're also looking for some other great infrastructure people, so people who are really familiar with Kubernetes, other kind of like cloud infrastructure. If you know anyone who is into that, we'd love to hear from them. And finally, we're also looking for a mobile engineer as well. So if you want to help build out the future of the mobile payments platform in decentralized finance, we'd love to hear from you. So with that, I'd like to just turn it over to Nate, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about some of these ideas behind user experience, testing, what this means, and sort of some of the lessons that we've learned. So thanks. Oh, man.
Always a technical hiccup. All good? Oh, no. Here we go. Let's have a look. Oh, no, because these days. Just go through it, yeah. Cool. So I'd like to start off by saying a big thanks to all the guys who got involved in the Bluefield subgame and Equilibrium betas. The information and the feedback that you provided was incredibly fruitful, and it's given us a lot of great insights as to how to improve the Nash platform for the future. Cool. So before we kind of go into our successes and what has been changed, I'd quite like to frame what user experience and usability testing actually is, because these are methodologies and ideas that we talk about quite a lot, but possibly haven't given you guys a bit of an update about what it actually is and what it means to us and why it's important. So user experience is defined basically as any interaction that an end user has with a company and its products and services. And usability testing is a really good way to actually test the viability of what we've created so far. So the way that we do this is we get loads of participants in, depending on the personas that we want to sort of test. We give them some tasks, and we see if they can perform those tasks. And sort of it gives us quantitative and qualitative information about that. So, for example, if you're using our trading platform and you want to make a trade, that will be a task. If you're using the funds side of things and you want to see how your Ether is performing, that will be a task. So it's that kind of stuff, basically. So why is it important? Well, the whole idea behind this is that we want to provide the best possible user experience there is, effectively. Is it working now? But I want to kind of give you guys an example of bad user experience so you can have a look at this. So some of you may have seen this before, some of you may have not seen this, but this is basically a message that was sent through via the emergency systems to all cell phones, radio, and television broadcasts in Hawaii. As you can see, this is quite a scary message, and for the guys who haven't actually seen this before, you might be thinking, well, why is this bad user experience? Well, this was not meant to be real life. This was meant to be an actual drill. And if we look at the screen that was used to send this message, you can quite clearly see that there's a lot of sort of ambiguous messaging going on here. Everything looks the same, all the links are the same. It's not exactly clear about what you should be clicking, especially if this was at 8 o'clock in the morning if you haven't had your coffee. So this is the one that was clicked, and this is the one that should have been clicked. Now you can see the only difference here is the word drill. Now, you'd think that there should be some sort of hierarchy here, or something that basically says, click this if you're sending a drill, or click this if you really are trying to send impending doom to people. So one round of user testing here could easily cancel out this issue. People could come back and go, you know what, for drills we have one column here, and for reality we have another column here. But that wasn't done. And you might be thinking, well, how does this relate to Nash? Well, Nash is finance, and this is like a sensitive issue to quite a lot of people. And you need to make sure that you feel trusted on our platform. You feel trusted with your finances. So what does this process look like in terms of user experience? Well, this is kind of a broad overview. but the first sort of step or port of call is interviewing people and talking to people. And this can happen at a variety of stages. So whether you're creating a brand new concept or if you're iterating on a current design, we just talk to people. We find out their pain points, what they like, what they don't like. And then we get this really good base of knowledge about how to kind of continue. And so from this, we then go to prototyping. So we actually create functional wireframes to test with people. Now, these aren't designed up. They're not prettified or anything like that. They're purely just to test the functionality. And then we test. We take these to people, like I said before. We have these participants. We go, can you use this in the task that we sort of specify? And then we refine. So it's quite rare for us to actually create a concept that works straight away. You always have to keep going back and refining and testing the process until you have a wireframe that actually works for people. And then you go into designing it. So then you add the layer of color and the prettiness to it. And then it gets implemented. So this then goes live, and it gets tested, and away you go, basically. So we listen to you. Again, just want to say thanks to everyone who has got involved in the previous betas or is currently testing the Equilibrium beta. We do listen to you, and it really does mean a lot that you give us your feedback because it helps kind of improve the Nash platform because you are the guys who are going to be using it at the end of the day. So the 2FA, we understand that this is definitely a bit of a bugbear right now. And now, instead of actually asking for 2FA every 9 minutes or every time you have to enter a trade, we effectively have it once to unlock the trades or the transfers, and then after that, you don't have to do it within that session. However, for the security-conscious guys, we do actually allow, if you want to basically set your own time. So you can kind of uncheck this checkbox, and it asks you how many minutes you want to wait until you want to enter your 2FA again. So you have both options. So the orders panel, again, we were trying something different with this. And effectively, when you're trying to innovate in this space, you do kind of test new things and you try new approaches. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. With this one, it didn't work as well as we had hoped, but that's the way it kind of goes sometimes. So then we have this updated design now. So this is actually the longest panel that you'll see within the exchange, and you can now see that everything fits within this one panel. You don't need to scroll, and we're using the same terms as you would expect on other exchanges now. Then we have the orders pane. So what we noticed within testing and certainly within feedback from Subgame is that when people were creating orders and it came into the actual orders panel, especially in relation to like market orders, where they got automatically filled, is that they couldn't see the trade and immediately they were frightened, they were scared. And this is something that we definitely don't want to have within the exchange because you don't want to be fearful. Again, it's kind of relating back to that financing, the scare of financing. So we have this new design where we have two tabs now. So rather than having active orders, filled orders, and trade history, we just have all orders, which encompasses any open or filled orders, and your trade history. So now, as soon as you place a market order, limit order, stop order, whatever you want, it will appear in this panel, and it's kind of been reduced down to a bit of a clearer UI as well now. And then we have the orders book. So a few little sort of like comments around the orders book. We have now sort of redesigned this, so now we have one singular wall per order, but also a cumulative wall, so you can kind of see a little bit of a market depth sort of appearing within that. And what we've also done here is updated the typography to be monospaced, so getting more clarity out of this and making it a lot easier to read the orders. So transfers was actually a bit of a success, actually, generally. This is, again, an innovation that we kind of came up with that kind of is different to what is currently out there. We felt that current transfers are a little bit complex. It can be kind of confusing, especially in like a decentralized sort of circumstance. So we kind of came up with this new innovation. Now, for the most part, people really liked this, but we did have a few comments from a few of the Bluefield and the Subgame guys that sort of said, maybe this isn't quite right. So, for example, you can see the two columns there. They're quite close to each other. And a few people got a little bit confused about where you're sending from and to. So all we did is effectively split those columns apart and then get these little arrows between the two. So again, trying to point towards this direction of travel of funds, basically. And just to kind of finally iterate on, well, if I'll give you some final information, is that user experience, once we launch the platform, that's not the finality of it. If anything, this is actually the beginning of the entire process. So we will constantly be iterating and redesigning parts of the exchange, and also kind of coming up with new concepts. So I want you guys to kind of look out in the community for posts that are basically recruiting more testers. And if you get in, great. If not, just keep looking out. We're going to be constantly iterating, and it is a cyclical process. Oh, wrong way. Cool. So that's a 15-minute break, guys. After the break, we'll be having a community AMA with the 3 founders and also taking some questions from the audience.
The product change.
Awesome. So we have another question here from Nice Fox. What are the challenges behind getting the licensing to trade NEX tokens outside the US?
Sorry, outside the US?
Yeah, for outside the UK.
We don't talk about licenses. Licenses only makes things, talking only makes things slower, and we like to move fast on that one. But I can say that US is certainly one of the most difficult markets, if not the most difficult. So we have been already able to green light most of the crypto market. So the big majority of the crypto market is already able to legally trade on Nash, including many states on US. And that's what we aim to launch for.
I would add that, I mean, some other exchanges seem to list what are, security tokens without, I won't get into it, but for us, the process of listing tokens, we plan to be around for a long time, and we're not going to cut any corners, for short-term profit. So that's just our approach, which might be different from others in the market, but that kind of goes right hand in hand with our values and how we intend to build a long-term company.
Yeah, and just to, for people who may not be familiar, the U.S. requires money transmitter-ish licenses in like every state, so it's quite an intense process to do that, and that's a process that we are doing.
Cool. Take a question from the audience. Hands up. Yeah.
Hello. Just comparing Nash with another exchanges, let's say some names like Binance, Kraken, Bitfinex. Bitfinex, I know that they are building a DEX on the EOS network. Also, Binance is doing the same. So what do you believe is going to be your difference between another DEX exchanges in the market? Why do you think you are going to succeed in this market?
So I would just start by saying that DEX is like really an underspecified term. Like there's a lot of different things people mean when they say DEX. So in particular, the Binance DEX that you're talking about, it's you control the funds that are on the exchange, and you control them with certain properties in terms of the trades that are being executed on the exchange. And this is just a simple property that always holds, no matter what the underlying technology is. So we would say that, in comparison to many of these other DEXs, right, like we're giving you much clearer value proposition in terms of, the things you care about, which is presumably self-custody and the inability of us or someone else to steal those funds if something goes wrong. We just like to be more specific about sort of what we're giving you. And then obviously the other part, which we always talk a lot about, is performance and user experience. And those are things we think we're doing better as well, right? So anyone else want to?
Yeah, just to be clear, Ethan was talking about self-custody, and some of these platforms will say they are non-custodial. But no-custodial is also sometimes what you are holding that's no-custodial. So most of the times is this representation of another asset. So I would say it's actually custodial, because the final asset is not this Binance chain token. That's not what you want. You want the Bitcoin representation or the EOS representation. So they actually have custody, or who's doing the peg has custody of that. So it is custodial from our perspective. So when we say non-custodial on Nash, we mean that you actually have the NEO, you actually have the Ethereum, we actually have the token. So that's a very clear value proposition for us. And another thing is we are not just exchange. We are a fintech company. So we hope that our users will be much more than just exchange users. They will enjoy the other services of the company.
Your NEO or ETH or Bitcoin on our system, and you interact with that partner to kind of seamlessly trade your Bitcoin or NEO for your desired fiat. And that's in the works that should be, I mean, that will be ready for when we launch. The other approach that we're taking is investigating some other stuff. I'm not sure if I should talk about it.
Yeah, maybe not.
Okay, yeah. As far as debit card integration, that's not something we're currently looking at, but things change.
Some of our partners in some markets do support cards, but we ourselves are not doing that. So it's like, how do we reply that? Yes on the partner, no on Nash.
What's the plan for balancing the verification nodes and the TPS in the future?
I mean, basically, like any engineering problem, we just need more data about sort of how that works, and we'll play it by ear. I'm not sure if anyone else has more intelligent things to say about that. It's sort of a problem that, you know, we have yet to encounter. So,
Okay. Will the next token have any other functions in the future?
Like, this is something that a lot of people got addicted to from bad habits on crypto. So when we decided to do a revenue sharing token, so this is not a profit sharing token, it's a revenue share token. We did so when we thought about how can we bring the most value directly to the investor. So there's no utility we can add to the token that would add more value than giving direct revenue from the company. So no, there's no more utility because there's no more value that we can extract. The other part is, does Nash has flexibility? I would say yes, we can add more stuff to the token in a sense that...
And other features, like I would not really want to trust that. But if you look at our smart contract for the Next Exchange token, it's been the same since launch, and you can verify that it can't change really. The things that do have the flexibility to do is something like we did with the community is just a simple verification. Like you can sign up with the community if you can provide proof that you have an address with at least one Next token. So that's something that we can do outside of altering the properties of the actual blockchain contract to basically give people permission to do something extra. But yeah, that's basically it.
Cool. Okay, so we've had some good questions from the community so far. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to ask a question? A couple of people.
Liquidity is one of the major issues with DEX. How do you tackle the issue of liquidity or bringing more volume?
I think everyone here has a piece of this answer. From the business side, we have to be very clear to separate volume from liquidity. So they are two different things, and there are two different ways to have them. So volume is most about having users and having people buying in your platform. Liquidity can actually be acquired. So from the business side, we're gonna invest in acquiring some liquidity from the market to bootstrap our exchange and have a good, healthy market. So what it means is when you trade on Nash, there will be some depth on the order book, and there will be a fast supply for your demand. And that's what we can provide there.
Yeah, sure. Just to add a few things. So, like, one thing is if you go out and look at DEXs today, right, you see that they have pretty low volume and pretty low liquidity if you want to make a distinction between those terms. There's a lot of reasons for that. We're sort of taking a kind of holistic approach in that I would say basically every component of our exchange is designed to address those issues, right? So, like, one of the issues is performance, right? We're addressing that issue. One of the issues is sort of lack of tokens that people care about, like, for example, Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has way more volume than really, pretty much any other token, right? So by supporting other tokens, you also get some of this stuff. And then also there's user experience, right? So one reason people don't use DEXs is because they're so alien and unfamiliar and kind of bizarre, right? That you have to sort of understand public-private key cryptography, all this stuff. And again, we're solving that problem too. So basically, the kind of core simple hypothesis here is if you build an exchange that has all the properties of a centralized exchange and yet is still, self-custody or a DEX, there's no reason that you can't achieve the same volume as, other centralized exchanges.
This is quite a long one. What kind of external interest is Nash receiving? Are your partners growing? What is the team hearing from external parties? Any fresh insights from existing partners?
Right, so there's a piece here who says, I don't think anyone here actually thinks Nash will be the be-all and all distributed finance. I disagree. I do think so. I think there's at least 3 here who think Nash will be the be-all on distributed finance. If not, we'll not be doing this. So how does Nash is being perceived outside? I can say it's great. We have been approached by several banks. We have been approached by some of the biggest investment banking in the world. We have talked to some of the biggest liquidity providers in the industry. We can start that we did the first security token, that Ernst Young does our auditing, and that we have Recurity, Cure53, and NCC Group doing security audit. Who bootstrapped our matching engine was a consulting company when we are hiring Elixir developers called Dockyard, which is very known in the Elixir industry. Also, we had Chris McCord, which is very known in the industry, starting the project. So we have been working with the best. We try to hire the best. We try to give back. So I would say the external appearance is amazing. That reflects on us during a downturn, raising capital with so facility and having so good VCs by your side that I think no one in 2018, by the time we did, would say it was easy to raise $37 million of capital from established players, and we did so. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to name names, but there have been many very smart people who've looked at what we're doing and have been very impressed and very excited about what we're doing. So, the answer is, I guess, yes or whatever.
We've answered the first one.
We don't think we're Messiah, though. I mean, we're just a company, but we're doing the best we can. And so, yeah.
Okay, so we've answered the first one here. But the second one by Billy Belt is the share of exchange fees will always be 75% for its maximum stake. Is this for life? And the second one is what happens to these contracts if we're bought out by a big company?
It's just amazing. We are getting close to launch the MVP, and people is worrying that we got bought by a big company. So it's this is the best problem we could have. So the first one, if it's for life, I cannot say if it's for life. I don't know when I'm gonna die and when you're gonna die, but I can say it's for a very long time. We do not have any plans to change it, and what we can actually do is, this is a security, right? So we could actually end the validity of the security, so we could buy back or have a program where you exchange for new security, and that could change the terms. But when that happens, you normally have the option to keep your security. So it's that's why we did the security, right? Is to give investors some trust and some peace of mind when sleeping. It's not just something that that by definition cannot increase in value, right? If it's a utility, by definition, it could not give you any payback for what you put in it. So that's why we did so. What happens if the contract is bought? So first, I would say that we don't aim to be takeover. So if we are being bought, it's probably like any company when it grows. It does what we call series, where you receive an investment and you give away maybe some equity, maybe you license some kind of your technology, and then we could, for example, license a piece of our revenue to a subsidiary. And that is something that we think about, but not to have a company buying Nash. And especially because when you think about it, if someone wants to buy Nash, it's because he believes we are doing a great job. So normally when someone is approaching like that, he wants to keep the good job being done. He just wants to be part of that, you know? So, yeah, I would say nothing happens for a good while. Maybe you want to have something to happen when that time comes, and I hope Nash is the one buying, not selling.
Yeah, and I don't know legally, you know, I'm not a lawyer or whatever, but like, you know, if someone buys 100% of a company and there's a security that's attached, that's sort of issued by that company that says, oh, this company will, you know, issue this revenue from the thing, you know, nothing has really changed, right? The company still exists, the exchange still exists, the token still exists, right? So, you know, there would just be new ownership, basically.
Cool. Taking questions from the audience, if there are any.
When will Next be available on Nash?
When we have a securities trading license.
What's the 2-year plan for adding more high-volume pairings, and what potential hurdles are there behind this?
What potential
hurdles are there?
So this comes from, again, on the other side. So I will just take the business side. So from the business side is having these projects provide the documentation or provide the proof, or that we can produce the proofs that they comply what is needed to be complied. So let's say if we do acquire a securities trading license, when is the time to list a security token, maybe we can list it if the proper documentation is put in place. If not, if it's a token claiming to be utility, we need to have the proper documentation that this is a utility. So the hurdle of adding new pairings from that side is doing the legwork legally to clear this and list the token in a very safe way. And this is also, again, something that you have been seeing us talk over and over again. This is investor protection. So if you list a token, and this token is being highly traded, but then you say, oh, now there's a problem, I need to delist it. That doesn't damage the exchange. That doesn't damage Binance when they are delisting the token. That damages the investors. They lose 80%. They lose 60% when that happens. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I think this comes back to Bitcoin support, which is probably the biggest pairing for any market. We hope to have that ready later this year. And I think added in with that support, I mean, the protocol we've designed and started working on is the same for any, well, not any, but most Bitcoin-derived chains. So be Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Diamond Sparkles, or whatever is next. Yeah. So once we have those, then I think that'll give us a lot of ability to have very high volume markets there.
Are you going to integrate a smart trading GUI directly onto the exchange?
Yes.
Cool. What can the community do to help the team progress as quickly as possible?
So what can the community do to progress as quickly as possible is something that has different answers on different stages of the company. So right now we are still on the awareness phase. So from a brand perspective, we just renamed. So we announced the new name Nash on our previous event. So that was 1 quarter ago. So it's very short time for a brand. We are trying to build a 1 century brand. So it's like 3 months. It's just baby steps. So there is still a lot of groundwork and I can say maybe underground work that our community can do and tell about what Nash is building. And I think like we have been very transparent in everything we do. So it's not only tell about it, like our community has these tools to actually show about it. You can actually get our prospectus and say, hey, this is the legal backing for this token. You cannot do this with any other token you have. You can actually go and say, hey, enter here, equilibrio.nash.io, do trade cross-chain. You can actually do that. And I think that's very powerful for our community to bring people already in the industry to increase awareness of our brand.
Yeah, I would just add and reiterate that what the community is already doing is also extremely powerful, right? So we launch a beta, and immediately we have hundreds or thousands of people who are happy to sort of take care, go over it, give us like really rich and detailed feedback about it. That's something that it's really, really difficult to find, and the quality of the feedback has been really good. So to continue doing that, and the product will be absolutely amazing.
When is the Nash spaceship launching into the space and beyond?
Right. So again, this is a multifaceted question. We are not looking to enter in the aerospace industry, at least not for now. People are doing private spaceships, so maybe something in the future. If that refers actually when we launch, I think we have never been closer. We are not talking here about quarters. We are not talking here about semesters and years. We are talking in very short time span to be live, and to be live with all the features that we dream it to be live. So that's I think it's very fulfilling that we didn't need to cut corners on that one.
How does the team feel about the first 2 beta feedbacks, basically? Were the feedback mostly what you guys thought of, or what we thought of?
Yeah, so I would say that a lot of the stuff we got was expected, but still useful, right? So as Nate was saying earlier in the talk, right, like, we came up with a lot of really innovative ideas, right, in terms of giving a user experience to what's sort of a self-custody or decentralized exchange that feels sort of normal and feels like an exchange to people. And I think we validated a lot of those kind of like really high-level, deep decisions. We also got a lot of really good low-level feedback, some of which we were expecting, some of which we weren't expecting. I think often you do know, you do suspect things are going to work out, but sometimes you make decisions and then you get surprised by what the users say, and both have happened quite a lot. So,
any other questions from the audience? Yep.
I'm just wondering how I can get one of those mugs on the table.
Yes, be fast.
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen this mug. I'll add that I had a Nex cup that one of my cats broke.
Oh, so there's only 2 mugs of it.
Yeah, and I still have it. It's broken on the counter, and I was sad until I saw this. So.
Without depending on the revenue generated from the exchange, what's the monthly burn rate and how long do you think you can last at the current? Because we've seen some ICOs fade away because they run out of money.
Right. So I think that there was a lot of gambling happening from the project side also, because they were expecting value to increase. We actually started the process of selling as soon as we received the money. Unfortunately, all the KYC process is not done on Nash, so what's slower, that we were affected by some of the decrease on value of the token. But a lot of people who invested doesn't know we actually raised it in cash from all our VCs and partners. So we only raised it on NEO from the community, from the public. So most of our assets were in cash already. And we liquidated most of our crypto assets. We do have an exposition, so we do have a bit of Bitcoin, NEO, gas, Nex, and Ethereum. And that's part of the funds of the company, and that's to have exposure in the market. But only talking about a fiat burn at current level, and at current level I do include some expansion that we are gladly doing, as Ethan said. We have a bit more than 2 years of runaway from today. So we have been running for about 1 year and something now. So this is inside our plans. Can we get farther? Yes, we can stretch that, and we hope that we make money on the exchange on this meantime. 2 years is a lot of crypto, so this is also only fiat. So maybe in 2 years our crypto holdings does recover value, and that can give us another couple of years. So considering the value of today of all our cap, also our holdings, we have about 3.5 years. So it's not a lot because we want to grow. So we do envision raising capital in some way, maybe a partnership, maybe someone, so that we can achieve. We really want to. So we are no messiahs, Tom reminded, but we do want to achieve all these goals. So if we need more capital, we will raise more. But as someone running companies before, and I think Ethan did that, Tom have been involved with it. So it's like what you don't want to is have a burn rate that puts you below 18 months. So if we get below 18 months, then we're going to look at the other options. So every time we talk about spending, every time we talk about timelines, you're going to see Fabian or me or Ethan talking about 6 months. Because that's like how we plan when we get to 18 months. And then 18 months, we have to think about managing cash. That's maybe weird and maybe too much detail, but I know, unfortunately, people invested in a lot of projects who didn't plan even 3 months. So yeah, that's not the case.
Yeah, we just also add that, like, for normal startups, like, we have a totally healthy burn rate. So if you look at like non-crypto, VC-funded startups, like, we're totally normal and actually much better than normal in terms of how much burn we have.
I mean, yeah, I still think we're incredibly fortunate to be where we are with the capital that we've raised, especially in such a down market last September. But also, I mean, I think there's a lot in the madness of the industry in 2017, early 2018, a lot of people making unwise decisions, which, of course, we've made some bad decisions, but not on the magnitude that many in the industry have made. So, yeah, and we'll keep learning too as well.
Yeah, some great answers there. I think we have one other audience question. No? All good? Okay, cool. Okay, so security tokens are the next big thing because this is the playground of institutionals. So how do we foresee ourselves attracting institutional investors?
Sorry, attracting
institutional investors.
Right. I think there is some confusion here. institutional investors like endowments and this kind of people, they usually do not trade, right? They invest in funds, be those VC or more established funds, or maybe non-high risk funds. It's depends, but usually institutions, they don't trade, right? They don't get a university don't get their endowment, logging in Binance and start trading with the cash. So I think we are, when we pursue licenses for trading securities, and when we are so stringent about self-custody and security, we are catering for institutions in such a way that if I am a VC and I want to list a project that I invested on, I want to be on this platform. I don't want to be in another platform. So we are ready for that on that sense. Maybe that's a bit harder to see because not everyone is familiar of how these things works, but that's basically how this works.
Cool. So Simiak is interested to know how the team has experienced the progress so far in respect to the biggest successes, the most impressive moments, lesson learned, those kind of things.
I think that from my side, I think we learned a lot. We did make mistakes. I think a mistake that we did was not hire so aggressively on the beginning. I think it took about 6 months for us to start to really aggressively hire. So maybe if we hire more aggressively in the beginning, it would have this thing. And again, Nash is not just the founders; it's an amazing team. So thank you for the team, and I'm sorry to not have you guys 6 months earlier. Then we made a mistake of not being on board to liquidate the assets that we received from the ICO. So as I said, we liquidated as fast as possible, but in reality, we could a couple months before have the deals already signed to just liquidate as soon as they enter. So I think that if I would oscillate, and sometimes people on the industry do ask things for us, that would be advice I give to a project. We have been fortunate, and then is the surprise side that in 1 year we did get a lot of what we wanted, even hiring late, even liquidating late. So, and when I say liquidating late, it's not fair because it's like 1 week, 2 weeks that we started. It could be faster. And I think that's the biggest lessons from my thing, the biggest mistakes. I think that a lot of people think we did some mistakes that in reality, when you know what's happening inside the company, when you have the full perspective, you would see that there was a lot of thought behind it, and sometimes it's the best decision that could be made. For example, with the name. So a lot of people would criticize us, but now people do love the Nash brand. It's an amazing brand. So I think it was the right decision also. I don't know if you guys have other perspective.
So to kind of fill in some on the positive side, so I would say, like, you know, since the time in which we originally started the company, in a way, we've come up with a much more impressive and ambitious plan than we originally had, right? So if you had told us all, like, hey guys, you know, 2 years in the future you'll have figured out XYZ about, you know, these protocols, about this system, about this deterministic matching engine, about all of these things, like, I think, you know, we would have been very surprised in a good way that we'd actually made all of that progress. So as Fabio was saying, you know, I think some of these mistakes we made are maybe more along the lines of expectation setting, right? And sort of by saying some stuff too early and then getting people's expectations up about certain dates, certain times, it creates a kind of perception of bad things when actually it's many, many good things that are really happening that's kind of pushing everything to get into a better place as opposed to launching with something that's not as good. So I think we'd all be very happy with that. At a more micro level within the team, I think, you know, the team sort of, as soon as you start to see things like really coming together, like the full interface, like really there and working and sort of, you know, able to execute everything, like that's a really great moment. At a more micro level from the negative side, like I think we've learned some lessons about sort of remote teams and remote work broadly, right? How do you structure teams to be very productive? I don't think we've ever been like really bad at it, but we've certainly gotten much better at it sort of going forwards. So yeah, many lessons to learn there. I don't know if Tom, if you had anything.
Yeah, I think just scaling even from the 9 or 10 people that we had, which worked pretty well in a remote setting, up to almost 30, was difficult for our processes. And I think there's a certain point where we didn't reflect quite fast enough on like how that was affecting our work. But we did that reflection and made some changes. But yeah, in terms of, I think one of my favorite moments was like placing my first order on the beta after long waiting for it. Or just, you know, after seeing a technology in action that you've been dreaming of, like, seeing for so long. Like so many of the things, the protocols that we're designing and the approaches we're taking are built from scratch. It's like we're not copying and pasting a matching engine or like a trading engine from Forex, like, and just putting cryptos in there. Like, this is all like new stuff. So it's just the inventor, like, euphoria, if you want to call it that, when you like finally see something happen. It's pretty amazing. And I think, yeah, one of the biggest successes for me is like the renaming. I had even like forgot that we were next. And that was just like 3 months ago when we did that change, and we're just maybe I'm in a Nash bubble, but I remember it being like a huge thing. So I'm glad that it's worked out as far as I can see.
Yeah, sure. So I think we're getting close to the end of the AMA now. Has anyone got any final questions they'd like to ask?
Is Nash planning to launch initial exchange offerings?
Initial exchange offerings.
On sale on your platform.
Right. So let's go back a little bit, maybe 1,000 years when exchanges were created, right? So how do you get, why you have exchange is because you have someone selling something and someone buying something. So how do you get that something listed on the exchange? That's initial offering. So has always been initial offerings. What happened in the innovation in the blockchain was initial offerings without a centralized market, without a centralized entity. That was the innovation, not initial exchange offerings. Right? So just to put that in perspective a little bit, do we want that legitimate companies approach us to facilitate the process of their having a token? Because when you think about securities, when you think about some kind of utilities, they don't need to be a blockchain company or even a technology company. They can be an infrastructure company that's building a road in Thailand. And the access to capital there, maybe the interest that they pay is 12%. But they can actually issue a token where they pay an interest of 10%. And that's a great investment for many people in the world, because maybe this person is in US or maybe is here in UK, and he don't have access with such a risk profile that pays 10%. So he will want that. So we want to be a place where this legitimate infrastructure company will go and say, hey Nash, can we issue a token for this project that I'm doing? I'm building this road complex in Thailand. And I want Nash to say, yes, we do have the technology. We do have the knowledge. We did it before. It is a success. We can do it again. So yes, we're going to do offerings. But to do these offerings, we need to go through all the legal process. So we are not going to just try to game the market and do the new ICO of 2019. we are going to do offerings on exchange like Nasdaq does when it lists Uber, right, this week, or Lyft. This is the initial offering. This is what we want to do. We want to have legitimate companies listing them.
Any Northern American events coming up? Northern American events?
Oh yeah, I know why this question is here. The next quarterly report is planned to be on US, and as far as I know, yes, because it's going to be the next. We don't know yet where yet, so I cannot formally announce that. And I'm seeing marketing trying to kill me from here, so I will stop.
Will the exchange support trading bots, and is the team working on an official trading bot that we can use?
Yeah, we definitely support trading bots. That's how our liquidity providers will be interfacing with the DEX. But we plan to launch with a Go library, Python, and Node.js TypeScript library that anyone can use to write their own bot. And we have done an exercise of Anthony, I don't know where he is. He wrote a basic market bot that provides liquidity and stuff for our testing environments. So yeah, it's one of the big things that makes us like more of a real exchange, or more of a usable thing, because the ability to place orders at a high frequency via a bot is what makes it a more pleasant experience for the end user that's seeing the volume or the liquidity or like the market in action.
Yeah, and again, sort of like from the first moment of thinking about this exchange, we were thinking about what APIs do people want to use to interact with the exchange, right? So that's just another user of the exchange, right? So just like we care about user experience from the visual standpoint of the person who doesn't understand public-private keys, we also care about it from the standpoint of someone who's writing a bot in a programming language and wants to be able to use it in a reasonable way. So yeah, we've cared about that for a while.
We have a bot. So if people doing people using the beta now, you can see that there's orders that maybe they are impossible with the interface. I don't know, but there's orders that are being placed. They are being placed by what we call demo. So this is running inside the umbrella of the matching engine. It's kind of a bot, but our goal is that with the tool that Anthony built, we will have an external bot from that system placing. And I think that's going to be open source together with the TypeScript library, together with the launch, so people have a reference of implementation.
How do you want to compete against non-cryptocurrency companies such as N26, Revolut, or Stripe that are currently gaining momentum?
Right. So here is Nash as a company, right? So Nash is a fintech company, and what we see in finance is that finance is becoming digital. So banking is become digital in a sense that you don't have brick and mortar banks anymore. You have app banks, right? So the way I like to describe this, you have bank in a pocket. But it's not only banking. So here in UK, right? We're in London. This is like Revolut home, right? So everybody here understands very well what's banking in a pocket. So we also have the investment side coming digital. So you can see one of the most disruptive companies in US in the past years has been Robinhood, which is actually making very accessible to people native to mobile, which is like younger people, to invest. And so investment, which used to be this relationship with your manager in the bank, is also becoming digital. So we have this huge movement of investment and banking, two of the biggest sides of finance, becoming digital. So why not what you invest on and what you keep in your bank also become digital? You are already in a digital interface. And here is a very valuable premise of the Nash business, which is we believe that also the assets inside the digital things will be digital. So you have a digital currency. Maybe it's not Bitcoin. I do hope it's Bitcoin and X and ETH and NEO. But maybe it's a US dollar issued on the blockchain. Maybe it's a Brazilian real issued on the blockchain. So that will become digital, the currency. And the assets that you trade and invest on, the securities and the stocks that you own, they will also become digital. It's just a massive simplification of the settlement system that we have today, both from legal and technical perspective. It's much more efficient. So there's no way to go back from that. And at least that's the premise that we believe. So what we are building now from a business perspective is we are building for where these guys will need to build. So I do agree with D_Reiki. It's like, yes, I think these players, they will enter the crypto market because they understand that the market they are on is becoming digital. And when they enter the crypto market, we will already be there. And we will enter their market. And I think that it's much better to enter on the other direction, going from crypto to the other side, because we will be leaner, we will be more polished for the things that is the future, and with less legacy to move. You can think about this as like when a big company tries to enter in a market which is disrupting themselves. So why do we have N26? Why do we have Revolut? Why do we have Stripe? Why is not Western Union, Bank of America, and Unicred? Because it's much easier for you to disrupt when you don't have to maintain your current business. Maybe that's...
Cool. So before we finish, are there any final questions that anyone wants to ask? Anything burning? No? Yeah? Cool.
I would like to ask, how did you come up with the name?
So we proposed about 2,400 names. We did a legal search. No, sorry. We ranked the names by likeness of us. And we actually hired a company for consulting on the design of the mobile. And they had experience doing branding. So they set up a spreadsheet with some classifications that you need to put to select a good brand. So we ranked, of this 2,000, we cut about 1,000, so we ranked about 1,000. And then we started to do legal lookup. And there was like 20 left. And we select one that we come up with the idea right on the beginning. It's like we did a full circle. Like we came up with the idea one day because I actually suggested Hayek, which is a Nobel Prize winner. He won the Nobel Prize because of his theory of pricing, which how price is about information. And what we are building here is really an information system. So exchange is a way to exchange information. But Hayek had some association in US with a libertarian political line. And we didn't want to associate the company with a political line. And Ethan suggested Nash, which was more or less on the same, another person which was very important for what we were building. So John Nash, also Nobel Prize winner for the Nash equilibrium. So he came with the solution for a stable equilibrium in a game, in a full information game, which should be a perfect market, which is what we aim to build, the perfect market. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, just a few other fun things. Like so we really like the idea of a name that sort of had a deeper meaning, right? And Nash has a deeper meaning, sort of being tied to the person. We also liked names that sort of sounded almost like a verb, right? Which Nash kind of fit. Also short names, always good, right? So all of these things kind of like came together with that. And what Fabio said about Hayek is exactly right. So it was that plus, I think I was literally like going over a dictionary of like all of these like economics related ideas, right? And sort of Nash equilibrium came in, and I was like, oh, like Nash, he's a really amazing guy, right? And so then, that sort of happened. So it was a very arduous process, but I think we're all happy with it.
Yeah, and if you haven't consulted your trademark lawyers on how to choose a new name, you should do so before starting a business. But that also eliminated about 99.8% of our names down to... I mean, even Nash was a small risk, but it was a risk that we were willing to take because we can defend that brand.
One thing that is what Ethan was reminding is like right from the beginning, looking at names, Nash really stuck because it could be used as a verb. And maybe it's time for us to say for our community start to use it as a verb. I don't know because you cannot use the product yet, but it's like when you are paying something, we say, oh, people could just say, oh, I'm going to Nash this. Or I need to trade Bitcoin for Ethereum and say, oh, just Nash it. Yeah.
Well, one other thing that just reminded me of too, we also did some phonetic stuff. So I remember, Fabio, you were going through like all the languages in the world, right, and trying to figure out like what phonetical symbols worked, and Nash actually fits surprisingly well with that as well.
Yeah, you can actually try to speak Nash in Chinese, and it's going to be like Nashi, which is quite close, and in most, in German, in Portuguese, Nash is the way we pronounce Nash is actually with E, and that domain was also available. So another dimension on this chosen was, can we buy a domain with that name? And so it's like a huge thing. Yeah. So just Nash it.
Cool. So that's all of our questions from the community. Any final questions? No? All good? Any comments that you want to make before we end this, guys? Or
just, we are very grateful for all the investors, for all the community. I hope that we are giving back more than we took. That's our goal, right? It's always give more than we took, both from the community and from our team. So I have to say thank you for our team for the very hard work that you guys put. I know that we try to do a contract where you would work less than 40 hours or just 40 hours. And most of you have been putting amazing hours. So thank you very much for all the hard work. I think everyone on the top, all the founders really believe in the company, and I hope you guys really believe in that also. If not, have a conversation with us. And this is a message that for the team and for the community, we will never compromise on security and on decisions that we took to take shortcuts. So sometimes we try to put dates and put pressure and try to get something out. It's just a way to have milestones and move forward. But we will not launch, or we will not list something, or will not say something if that's against our values. So at the end, we do hope to provide the best software, to provide the best service, to give the best return.
Cool. Well, I'd like to thank Tom, Ethan, and Fabio for some awesome answers.